Yesterday, the government announced £300 million of investment to develop family hubs across 75 local government authorities. These new hubs will provide support for families to ensure the early years development of their children goes as smoothly as possible. The first 1,000 days of a child's life are considered the most important. This new policy comes at a time when the Princess of Wales has also launched her own campaign as well. I'm now delighted to say I'm joined by Conservative MP Dame Andrea Leadsom, who has been a leading advocate of these policies and co-wrote an article with the Prime Minister just yesterday. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's a busy day in the constituency, but tell us why it's important to have these family hubs across the country.
Well, essentially, the period from conception to the age of 2 is the time when the lifelong blocks for emotional and physical well-being are laid down. So if you get the first 2 years right, then that baby will go on to feel more emotionally secure, the baby will be healthier, more school ready, and so on throughout that baby and then later child's life. So actually the foundation is just the most important part. And so for me, it's just extraordinary that we've never really focused on this before. And I know a lot of people say, well, we had Sure Starts, but actually Sure Starts didn't focus on the services and support that parents and carers want and need in that critical early period. And that's what family hubs are going to deliver.
And Andrea, I was really struck when I was reading the article that you wrote with the Prime Minister yesterday about the digitisation of red books. I remember those red books very well when I had my children. And the fact is, if they're not digitised, then they can't be shared across different health professionals. And you might think that's a very simple thing to do, but it's a very meaningful thing to do, isn't it? And it's something that I think will make a real difference.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's one of the sort of less noticed parts of the rollout of the family hubs and Best Start for Life. But actually digitising that red book so that every baby has their own health notes. Now, my ambition, which I have to admit I haven't yet achieved, is that every baby should have an NHS number before they're born. So in the 3rd trimester, because at the moment, when you're born as a baby, your health notes are effectively your mum's notes. And so in the very sad cases where babies are taken into care, all too often we hear from foster carers that they knew nothing about what had happened to the baby before coming into their care. So that's obviously at the most extreme end. But just in life generally, imagine how fantastic it would be if I could actually look back and see, right, this was what happened to me when I was born, this is what I weighed, this was my immunisations, I need to have that one, or I didn't get this illness, or I had a squint, in my case, I had a squint, didn't realise that until recently. So actually that digital record is going to really transform from safeguarding to just parental knowledge about their baby, and then for the baby themselves when they grow up.
And these family hubs are coming out at a time when, of course, the Princess of Wales has launched her new campaign. And we're really starting to understand that the life of a child is those couple of first years, which, let's face it, people used to say, oh, the child won't remember or she'll not have any knowledge of what happened. Those adverse childhood experiences that might happen to young people do have a real impact, Andrea, on the child's life.
That is so right. And I completely take my hat off to the Princess of Wales for the work she's doing to highlight this area. And when you're born as a human being, we are unique in the animal kingdom in the extent of our underdevelopment. If you think about it, a cat, an elephant, they can all sort of stand, walk around, fend for themselves from minutes, if not hours after birth. But the human baby is totally vulnerable until they're at least a year old and more like 2 years old. But the physical underdevelopment is just a part of it. The baby's brain is only partially formed at birth, and those millions of neural connections are being made constantly at the rate of about 1 million a second in the first year of life. And they are all connected as a result of that baby's earliest experiences. So a baby that receives loving care from its adult carers will actually learn in its neural connections that the world is generally a good and safe place. And that baby will learn that as something for life. whereas the baby that's neglected or abused will develop a very different approach to life that will stay with them throughout their life on this earth.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for joining me. I know, as I say, it's a busy day for you, and I really do appreciate you coming on, but I wanted to develop that story today, and thank you for coming on and chatting to us.